At the start of the story, a Japanese man wakes up in a pure white room, silent, empty, and endless. There are no doors, no windows, and no sign of another soul. As he explores, he notices something unusual, a single, mysterious button embedded in the wall. With a mix of wonder and excitement, he reaches out and presses it. In an instant, the room comes alive. Hundreds of tiny angels burst out from the walls and floor, laughing as they swirl around. They remain for only a few moments, then vanish just as quickly, melting back into the surfaces they came from. But before disappearing, they leave behind odd buttons scattered across the walls and floor. This, it seems, is the beginning of something, a strange path of learning. The man looks at his hand, and then lifts the finger he used to press the button. He sniffs it, as if expecting to find a clue hidden in the scent. And then, all at once, panic grips him. He begins screaming, loud, desperate cries echoing off the blank white walls. He shouts for help again and again, but no voice answers back. Just silence. Left with no choice, he makes a decision. He's going to press every button, one by one. Each time he does, something bizarre drops into the room. A tiny toothbrush, a giant flower pot, a shoe with no pair. And if he presses the same button repeatedly, the same object falls again, over and over. Soon, he's surrounded by a growing mountain of chopsticks. Then he presses a button right in front of him, and a small trolley rolls out and crashes into his foot. Winching in pain, he lashes out and slams another button, this time in frustration. That one transforms into the shape of a child's behind, and releases a puff of gas directly into his face. Hours pass. The once empty room is now cluttered with every kind of odd object imaginable. Exhausted, the man picks up a rubber ball and throws it at the wall. It hits, bounces, and lands squarely on another button. This time, a plate of sushi appears. Starving, he lights up with joy. Finally, something he can eat. But as he lifts the sushi to his mouth, he suddenly freezes. There's no soy sauce. He keeps pressing the button over and over, desperately hoping that this time, just maybe, a bottle of soy sauce will appear. But each time, more sushi tumbles out, plate after plate. No sauce. Defeated, he finally gives up and starts eating the sushi plain. The moment he finishes the last piece, he presses the button again, wanting just a bit more. And of course, this time, a single bottle of soy sauce drops to the floor. Furious, he hurls it across the room. Then, from another button, an old pair of 3D glasses falls out. Curious, he slips them on, and suddenly, he can see a tiny angel floating in the room, pointing silently at a nearby button. He wonders if this is finally the way out. But the moment he presses it, a countdown begins. Numbers flash in the air. He holds his breath. When the countdown hits 0, the same childlike backside appears and releases another cloud of gas right into his face. Hours pass. Somehow, in this chaos, he finds and finishes reading part 5 of a strange, hilarious book. Excited, he slams the button again, eager for part 6. But instead of part 6, Part 7 drops into his lap, completely skipping the next chapter. Irritated, he jabs the button again. He keeps pressing the button and ends up getting part 8, then part 9. But part 6, still missing. Then suddenly, click, one button triggers something new. A hidden door slides open in the wall. Overjoyed, he jumps to his feet. But in his excitement, he forgets which button opened it. He frantically starts pressing others. One of them unleashes a wild, tribal-looking man who darts from wall to wall, howling like a maniac. Another makes water pour straight onto his head. After a flurry of chaos, he finally stumbles upon the correct button again. The door opens. But just as he steps toward it, it slams shut right in his face. He tries again. Same result. Then it hits him. The door only stays open while the button is being held down. So he begins experimenting. First, he tries pressing it with his foot. Then he ties a rope around it and pulls from afar. He even swats it with a fly swatter, hoping for a lucky hit. Nothing works. At last, he grabs a flower vase and carefully places it on the button. For a moment, it seems to work, but the button slowly rises back up. Frustrated, he realizes he needs to make the vase heavier. He tries filling it with water, but it makes no difference. The door stays shut. The problem was, the water only ever fell on it. So now, he starts stuffing the flower vase with sushi instead. He packs it tight, piece by piece, until the vase becomes so heavy that he can't even lift it. Frustrated, he grabs a pair of chopsticks and begins fishing the sushi out one piece at a time. Once it's light enough to lift, just barely, he picks it up with great effort and stumbles toward the button. But as he arrives, he freezes. He's forgotten which button it was. Again, panicking, he presses one at random. And just like before, the same wild tribal man bursts out of the wall and starts charging around. This time, the tribal man slams straight into the flower vase, shattering it clean in two. The man groans, mutters angrily, and finally manages to locate the correct button once more. This time, he tries burying the button in sushi, but it rises back up. Next, he tries taping it down, but that doesn't work either. Then, somewhere in the middle of all the stress, he falls asleep, thanks to some mysterious pen killer that somehow knocks him out. When he wakes, he feels oddly refreshed, and also in desperate need of a toothbrush. So he presses a button to summon water for brushing. Wrong button. But this time, something useful happens. A long rope drops down from the ceiling. His mood instantly brightens. Finally, a new idea to reach the door. He grabs the rope, presses the button, and swings across the room like a cartoon hero, landing right in front of the open door just in time. But the moment he steps through, he finds another door waiting. He rushes to open it, but it's locked. Hearing the first door behind him starting to close, he scrambles back, just barely making it. The door smacks him on the back on the way out. Frustrated, he spins around and kicks the nearest wall button. To his surprise, a shiny key begins floating in the middle of the room, slowly spinning in the air. He immediately realizes this must be the key to the second door. But just like the door itself, the key vanishes after a few seconds. Now he's faced with a double challenge. He has to find a way to keep the door open and get the key at the same time. But first, he needs to remember which button summoned the key. Of course, he's forgotten. He jabs at another random button on the wall. This time, a dog leaps out of the panel and starts barking at him wildly. The same thing happens again the second time. Wrong button, barking dog. But on the third try, finally, he finds the right button. Determined not to lose it this time, he walks backward toward the door, eyes locked on the button like it might vanish if he blinks. He marks it with a pile of sushi he sets right on top. Confident, he presses it again. The dog bursts out. Again, fuming, he locates the correct button once more and decides it's time for a new plan. This time, he grabs the rope and tries to swing across the room in a wild attempt to press both the key button and the door button at the same time. It fails. Spectacularly, he crashes to the floor in a heap. But as he groans and looks up, something catches his eye. A dusty old plunger lying nearby, the one he'd gotten earlier from some forgotten button. Suddenly, inspiration strikes. What if he uses the plunger to stick himself to the wall and press the button? After a few clumsy, failed tries, his strange new plan actually begins to work. Swinging with the plunger like some sticky superhero, he manages to cling to the wall and press the correct button. The key appears. He pushes himself off the wall with plunger, grabs the floating key midair, then swings to the door button, slaps it, and dives through the door just before it closes shut behind him. But just when he thinks he's made it, bam, another twist. Above the door, there's a second lock. This one needs a 3-digit passcode to open. Panic, he dashes back to the main room. And once again, the door smacks him on the back as he exits. That door has terrible manners. Fuming, he grabs the plunger and hurls it across the room. It smacks into the opposite wall, accidentally pressing a button. And like clockwork, the wild Adivasi bursts out again, sprinting madly from wall to wall. But this time, as the tribal man runs past, the man notices something strange. 3 numbers are written right on his forehead. A spark of realization hits him. That's the passcode. The only problem? The Adivasi doesn't stay in the room for long. He only appears briefly before vanishing into the wall again. So now, the man races back through the door, once, twice, 3 times, entering 1 number at a time, hoping he can beat the clock before everything resets again. As soon as the 3 numbers line up, the lock clicks open. He exhales, finally feeling a moment of relief. But the moment is short. He turns around, only to realize that the first door has now shut tight behind him. Now he's trapped again. This time, the space is so cramped, he can't even move properly, let alone try opening the door. Exhausted, he slumps to the floor and starts thinking. His mind drifts to all those strange objects he'd played with. The sushi, the rope, the plunger, the random chaos of buttons. Sure, he was stuck, but at least he was entertained. Then suddenly, he feels it, a faint breeze brushing across his face from the side wall. Surprised, he touches the wall and discovers a small crack. Something's off. His eyes widen. This wall is fake. Wasting no time, he pushes it open and steps into a strange, mysterious hallway. The path ahead floats in midair, like a bridge suspended in nothingness. It feels endless, like he's meant to run forever. So he keeps running. At last, the hallway ends. He stumbles into a new room, and the moment he enters, something strange happens. His hair grows long in an instant, and his clothes fade into pale, ghostly colors. Stunned by the sudden transformation, he turns around, but the door behind him shuts with a heavy thud. He looks around. The room is empty, just like the last one. But this time, instead of tiny laughing angels, giant angels stand silently all around him. The giant angels remain in the room for a while, silent and still. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, they dissolve back into the walls. In their place, they leave behind more of those strange, familiar buttons, embedded in the walls like glowing invitations. It was the next phase, the phase of practice. But by now, the man was tired, worn down. He had almost given up completely. That's when he noticed it, a soft, eerie light shining from above. Looking up, he realized there was no ceiling. The room had no roof at all, and high above, angels were flying, circling silently in the open space. This time, instead of pressing the buttons, he began using them, climbing them like rungs on an invisible ladder. But as he ascended, something strange began to happen. With every button he touched, Odd and unpredictable things unfolded down on Earth. A flower bloomed in the middle of a desert. An elephant collapsed in a forest. The higher he climbed, the more powerful and bizarre the effects became. It was no longer just nature that responded. Now, strange ripples spread across humanity itself. A man took his first step on the moon. Someone accidentally walked across a toaster. The world below was shifting with every press of his fingers. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime of climbing, he reached the top. His hair and beard had grown long, almost ancient. He no longer needed to press the buttons at all. He was floating, gently, effortlessly, like one of the angels. At that height, in the stillness of the sky, he paused and remembered everything. The strange doors, the laughter of angels, the plunger, the rooms full of nonsense and wonder, and all that he had learned on the way up. And in that moment, he accepted his role. He was no longer just a man trapped in a room. He was something else now. He understood. He didn't need to press the buttons anymore. His task was greater. He had to make decisions, the biggest decisions, for humanity itself. Now, from above, he began selecting moments, the greatest hits of humankind, not randomly, but carefully deliberate. And once his work was done, the walls around him began to vanish. In their place, a fan. Then, without warning, a glowing portal opened before him, spinning slowly, humming like it knew the way. He stepped through and entered the final room. This was the stage of the future. On one wall, every map of the Mahadweepas shimmered in silver light. On the opposite wall, there was just one thing, a single large button. He approached it and reached out his hand.